The Boston Celtics are your NBA champions. Banner 18 will hang in TD Garden. The Dallas Mavericks are headed home. What's the future look like for Luka Doncic and the Mavericks as they try and get back to the finals? What about finals MVP Jaylen Brown? We got a little bit of disagreement going. Plus, it's trade rumor season. We'll preview the offseason. All that and more on a jam-packed Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA, your daily source for all things NBA from the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us, making this part of your day, being with us Monday through Friday as shows will continue to roll on through the NBA offseason. We will be your destination for you to get all of that sweet, sweet trade rumor and free agency news, as well as the draft, all sorts of stuff coming to you here on Locked On NBA. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network and co-host of Locked On Nuggets. I'm joined by Tony East, Indiana basketball writer extraordinaire and host of Locked On Pacers, coming to you after the Boston Celtics have won Banner 18, have secured their 18th NBA championship with a 106-88 victory in Game 5. Jason Tatum with a phenomenal game that did not get him Finals MVP. We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll get into a little bit of where Dallas goes from here as they look to carry over their surprising success in reaching the NBA Finals. And a little bit later on, we'll preview the offseason for you as, guess what? Free agency starts tomorrow. Like today, technically. But we'll start hearing stuff tomorrow. A little bit of a new calendar for us. We'll talk about that and more on today's show. First, Tony, the Boston Celtics get the win in Game 5, closing out the Dallas Mavericks 4-1 in a gentleman's sweep. Jason Tatum with 31 points, 8 rebounds, 11 assists, 11 of 24 shooting. Jaylen Brown wins final MVP behind 21 points, 8 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals. Didn't really win it with this game. He won it with the other games. Al Horford gets his first NBA championship. Drew Holiday gets his second. Derek White's an NBA champion. All this, Luka Doncic with Luka's stat line is not indicative of reality. Luka finishes with 28 points, 12 boards, 5 assists. That sounds great. He goes 12 of 25 from the field. That sounds pretty good. Luka was absolute dog water in the first half of this game, and it got away from them very quickly, and then he added on some points at the end. I will just ask you, Tony East, what's your reaction to the Boston Celtics winning the NBA title?
Yes, and I say that as someone who likes when I think the team that I think is the best wins it all, because then history remembers them correctly and favorably, and that is what happened this year. The Celtics, well-built, very opportunistic this summer, very impressive. That takes stones. It sounds so easy when you win and to look back and go, oh, duh, it's obvious. But it takes stones to do trading a fan favorite for someone who has never gelled anywhere. And it takes a lot of stones to trade for a guy right before training camp. And they got away with both. And their young stars are no longer young. They're no longer ascending. They are established championship vets. I loved it. I wanted them to win because I thought it was just. I picked them to win in more than 5 games, so they actually played better in the finals than I thought. Their defense showed up again. They're just so good, and I think they're such deserving champions, and I like when a team that shows that all season. 60 people don't realize 64 wins is crazy. That's an insanely good team, right? They deserved it so much, and to see the emotion that so many of these guys, Drew's won one before, and he was obviously still amped, and now he can brag to his brothers that he once again has the most of his brothers. Take that, Justin. But for everyone else, so many NBA names and mainstays getting their first title is very cool. Reaction-wise, I was very happy with the result.
Like this from, as we're live on youtube.com/LockedOnNBA. Kay says Corrales should be here, but he's probably getting lit right now.
Corrales commemorative book, by the way, on the Celtics team that is coming out. Everybody should go check it out.
Yeah, go check out John's book. John should be on tomorrow's show if he's not in South Beach, half naked, running around, taking tequila shots off of his own navel. You can catch him on tomorrow's show, recapping the Celtics title. So for me, it just kind of comes down to Boston really impressed me by the end of it because they got better and better at playing as a team. And we have seen this kind of happen, the offensive explosion in the NBA and all these great individual performances, guys scoring 70, including Luka Doncic and all of these type of things. And really, Jason Tatum sacrificed a ton to win this title. He took more of a backseat. Like, he was still the primary driver, but he wasn't as ball dominant and didn't have the ball as much. Things were honestly pretty tough for him this season. His shot wasn't as good, especially in the playoffs, as it had been in previous seasons. And like, he had to play a little bit differently around these guys. But he did it, and he did in a way that helped make them better. Jaylen Brown could have gotten his money and been like, all right, I want my own team now because I want to be a super.
Well, I'm going to believe this is Matt's internet, and I'm just going to take over and say that, to me, what stands out about this game was the Celtics just saying, screw this. We're not going to mess up anymore. We're not going to beat ourselves, right? They're the only game in this series their defense didn't show up and completely wreck was that game 4. And in this game specifically, their defense was remarkable. And to add to that, the thing that stood out to me, and I kept track of it in my notes, they only had 7 turnovers, and their second turnover was really deep into the third quarter, which was so impressive. So after a game 4 in which like just enough happened to make people go, can the Mavs actually do this? Do they have the firepower and ability to actually make this happen? As I switch over to Matt Moore's side on the screen. Oh boy. Hello, everybody. I can do this by myself. It was just endlessly fascinating to me that their game plan changed, what they did better, how they handled this was, let's not mess up. They know their defense is so good. It has been all season, right? They got a ton of stops in this game. They didn't turn it over hardly at all, right? That was so vital to them playing their game and looking much better against this Mavs team. And once again, Mavs held under 100, only 88 points. That's what the Celtics needed to do after their game 4. They needed to clean up and to only turn it over 7 times and rely on their defense. They just didn't mess up as much, right? They didn't shoot that well. They shot 33% from deep, 42.7% from the field. From the field, the Mavs shot better, but the Celtics took care of the ball and took 11 more shots in this game. They defended well. That's how they were able to look a lot better than game 4. And the other thing that I would say, if I can keep ranting now that Matt is back, is to set the tone, the champ, Drew Holiday, in the first quarter was awesome as a roll man, a 6'4" guard, just sliding into space, making passes, making plays. He was phenomenal in those little moments too. So to me, those were the biggest changes from game 4 that got this one for the Celtics, was Drew early and their own ability to just say, let's not beat ourselves this time. Let's take care of the ball. Let's clean up our defense. And when the Mavs didn't hit 100, they didn't win in the series. 88 tonight, that'll do it.
Luka Doncic looked like he really ran out of gas. Talked about him in the second segment. I did want to ask you, because you kind of mentioned this to me before the show. So you don't agree with the Finals MVP pick, huh?
I have a question for you. If someone led their team in a series in points, rebounds, and assists per game, would you say that was the best player on their team for a series?
No.
No. But they also defended really well the whole series.
Did they? Okay, so did they shoot 30% from the field?
No, over that, 38.8%.
For the first 3 games, they shoot 30% from the field. And
better than Jaylen Brown from 3 also, and the free throw line. And
by the way, if we're going to talk about defense, Jaylen Brown was the primary assignment on Luka Doncic from game 1 through game 5, all the way. Most possessions, most shots defended. He was the primary defender on the best player in the series. Jaylen also, to me, had like all the signature moments where, like, game 1, the big block on Derrick Jones Jr. in game 1. He had closing shots to secure the game in games 1, 2, and 3. So, like, he had all of the signature moments, and he was right there in many ways through 3 games of the series. And then Tatum had a better game 4, but also, like, Tatum just has like higher usage, not much higher usage, but a little bit higher usage. And to me, Jaylen Brown, to me also this season, I'm a Tatum guy. Like, I've actually come to really appreciate Tatum's game. But when I watched the Celtics this year, I really thought that Brown was playing to the best of his ability relative to Tatum. Like, he was playing better to his ability than Tatum was to his. I think Tatum's peak is probably higher, but I don't think Tatum got there. And so while I think the production was definitely there, and this was like a very much a team win, I thought Jaylen Brown was a very deserving Finals MVP, because I felt like he was the one that made all of the big moments, had all the big contributions, and he was a lot more steady game to game than Jason Tatum.
He was very good, and I loved the moment they showed in the broadcast with him mic'd up where he went up to Mazzulla and said, if Luka stays in the game, leave me in. They were up 20 with, what was that, 5 minutes left, 4.5 minutes left. Like, no point in any of this. The Mavs cleared their bench like 2 minutes later, and he said, no, I'm still guarding that guy. Like, I love that moment, and does kind of encapsulate what was so important about his role. And he was very good, but I thought Tatum should have won. Can we do this? Unrelated to any analysis of the game, Matt Moore. Can we just clap for Al Horford or do something?
Let's go. Let's go, man.
NBA good guy, one of the most popular, highest approval rating guys in the league. A clearly stoked guy on the podium. What a career. What a journey to get this. So well
deserved. To finally get it. Like, these are the stories that are just so amazing because Al's been so good. Like, he was an all-star level player in Atlanta. Like, that's how good he was. Like, he was he was a guy they built around.
How many did he get? I mean, not enough.
Not enough. And then was great in Boston, and then left to go to 5 all-star appearances. He leaves. He goes to Philly. Philly runs him out of town and is like, Al Horford's not a winner. Okay, sure. Goes to the Thunder, takes a year off to get his body right, comes back and goes right back to winning with Boston. Just phenomenal story. Really happy for him and Drew Holiday. It was hard not to be happy for those guys.
Yes.
The Celtics team, I think, we're gonna look back and they're tough, I think, to analyze because the numbers, the way I've kind of come to feel about it, because I do think the fact that everybody's kind of like, they don't feel like this great. They don't feel like the 2017 Warriors. They don't feel like one of these all-time teams. Like, I think that that's legitimate, but the way I've kind of squared it in my head is, look, regardless of how we feel about them, they have one of the best seasons in NBA history. They have one of the best resumes in NBA history. From start to finish, they were the best team from training camp through Game 5. They were the best team the entire way through. 3 losses in the playoffs, 64 wins. This was an incredible, incredible season for this team. If they win another title, we'll probably start to change our tune on how good they are. But for now, I think that's enough to say that this was one of the best seasons we've ever seen. Easily.
I mean, 16 and 3, like that speaks for itself. Last year, it was so impressive to me that the Nuggets only lost 4 games. In the postseason, the Celtics did better. Say what you want about the competition. I don't really care. Part of the reason the competition felt inferior is because the Celtics are that good. And their lineup is completely stacked with all-star, fringe all-star level guys who never got hurt except for Porzingis in the playoffs. And they still rolled through everybody, right? Like, that's how good that team is and was. Very excited for them. And guess how many of their rotation players are free agents this summer, Matt? None. 0. Their whole team will be back next year, almost certainly. Yeah, well, the aprons will come later. They are a very, very good team and will be again next year.
On the other side, we'll talk a little bit about the Dallas Mavericks and whether or not the Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving can get this team back to the Western Conference Finals. Also, what happened to them in Game 5. We'll talk about that up next here on Locked On NBA. I got it. Summertime means baseball and the NBA Finals and more, and you can bet all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything baseball. You can get into WNBA betting, lots of value, I think, to be found there. I put a bet on Angel Reese for Rookie of the Year. I think Caitlin Clark's going to win, but I think there's a little bit of value on Reese. I also think this is looking like a more open WNBA field, given that the Aces are no longer just destroying everyone. So it's a little bit more open. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We'll be right back on Locked On NBA. Back here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us, making this part of your day. I appreciate you guys being with us here on a Tuesday, recording this 1 o'clock Eastern time. So my thanks Tony East for staying up with me to do this show.
There are tech issues in the East household at this time. My computer now says it's 12:30 a.m. It is not 12:30 a.m. And I was very confused. And that's why I just messed up coming into that ad read, and Matt's laughing at me and none of you can see it. I just had a worse performance in the Dallas Mavericks. Continue.
I don't know if that's true. That's not true. You tried, so that's a little bit better than I did. Luka Doncic, again, 28 points on 25 shots. Kyrie Irving finishes 15 points on 16 shots. Luka also had 7 turnovers. Just miserable. So I am a well-known Mavericks skeptic. Was skeptical of them pretty much the whole way. I like them to win versus the Clippers, and I like them to beat the Wolves because I knew the matchups were good in both of those. I'm not surprised they lost in 5. It is tough. I think it's interesting that we have now seen last year 2 8 seeds make the conference finals, and an 8 seed makes the finals. This year, a 6 seed in the Indiana Pacers, who you may be familiar with, and a 5th seed in the Dallas Mavericks both make the conference finals, and a 5th seed makes the finals. That's actually pretty rare. We don't see that very often. But the Mavericks were absolutely liquid fire after they made the trades for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. We saw what we saw from Derek Lively. That to me is like a big component in this, is like when Lively and Luka played together this season, they were awesome. They just were. A lot of the reason that their record wasn't better was because Lively was hurt or Luka was hurt. When those two played together, they were awesome. That said, it did take this specific sequence, I think, for them to get here. They had to face the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. They won the series with a Thunder in their first playoff run. A lot of weird stuff happened in that series. And they caught a Wolves team that I thought was overconfident coming out of the Nuggets series, and that they matched up extremely well with. So I guess my real question for you here is, we have a tendency whenever a team loses in the finals, especially with a young superstar like Luka, the immediate thing is they'll be back. They'll be back. We don't know. We just don't know. I have my thoughts on it, but I want to ask you, do you think the Dallas Mavericks will be back to the Western Conference Finals or Finals next season?
I think they have a very good chance because this defense is a thing somehow. And it like hit me so late for some reason. Like it was a month and a half to close the NBA season that they were defending really well. And it like, for some reason in my head, I just thought of them as like, yeah, Luka and Kyrie can score. They're going to outscore guys. Like they had a 112 or less defensive rating every round, every like different opponents, different styles, including the Celtics, amazing offense. Like they actually guarded pretty well this year. They couldn't score for crap, but like they guarded pretty well. And that makes me think, if you have Luka Doncic on your team and you can guard, like that stop right there, regardless of what else is on your team. Like that's a good formula. That's a very good starting point. They made the conference finals when they couldn't guard 2 years ago. So I don't know if I'd like favorite. The West is really good. They didn't have to play Denver, right? OKC sucked in that series, and it'll be much better next year. Like I think it will be a lot harder. But I think the Mavs could say, and their role players had really good postseason. So it's like very possible that they're not considered one of the best 2 teams in the playoffs next year. But like generically, formulaically, I'm like, okay, if this is one of the best 5 defensive teams in the NBA, if they can keep Derek Jones, like, yeah, why not? Like Lively's going to be better. Luka's going to be better. They have basically all their core guys back. If they can guard like this, I have no doubt they can score. Yeah, why not? They're absolutely good enough, I think.
Yeah, I will say this, even after all this, I'm still skeptical of the defense. And the reason is largely that if we look at kind of how it came about, it was mostly like opponents missing 3-pointers, and their closeouts were really good. And they were very selective about how they defended those threes. And they deserve a lot of credit for all those things. But I still think that things bent towards them significantly in terms of shooting variance. And so I am kind of like, show me over another 82 game season. Like, don't just show me March and then the playoffs. Like, show me, and then I'll buy in. And it is kind of interesting because the reason, though, I am really optimistic about them is Derek Lively. Because for years, I've just kind of felt like, look, if you get Luka a rim runner, you're going to be in such great shape. All you need is a guy that can set a good screen, roll to the rim, and catch a lob. And then is willing to run on the other end in transition for all those types of opportunities. And Lively's perfect in that regard. He's already a really good defender. He's going to be better. He's only going to get better. He may, even if he has a sophomore slump, over the course of the next 10 years, him and Luka are just going to be an absolutely killer pick and roll combo every single season. They should be absolutely dynamic together. And I think that helps a lot because it makes it less trying to figure out. You don't have to figure out how to work Kyrie in. It doesn't have to be like, well, we got to make sure that these 2 guys play together so that we can maximize the leverage. No, like Luka and Kyrie run pick and roll with Lively, and the other one finds opportunities and gaps in the defense. Now, I do think that the Mavericks need to find a way to rebalance the offense because, again, Luka was had one of the top 40 all-time highest usage rates. Nobody in that top 40 has ever won the NBA title.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Luka had the number 1 usage rate. Nobody has led the league in usage in 1 since Jordan. So it's just a really hard way to win. Like, that's a hard way to win. You need balance. You need to be able to share it. And so the counter to that is always, well, Luka has to do that because look at the guys around him. Okay, then they needed to use this and really push forward and try and get somebody else who can help them on that end, whether it's a bench guy, a 6-man, whether it's, a starter, whether you swap out, you try and upgrade from Derrick Jones Jr. by using PJ Washington, who I think raised his stock, or if you trade Daniel Gafford because you do have Lively, like that's an interesting dynamic here. Gafford started every game of the finals, and Derek Lively is much better than Daniel Gafford, and I think Gafford's good. So, like, I feel about the Mavericks the same way I feel about the Pacers. You went further than you were expected to. Don't rest on those laurels. Yep. Try and get as good as you try and improve as much as possible. See this as an opportunity. You're really good. You're there. Push. Don't be complacent now, because I don't know that you're going to be able to get the same breaks that you did to get you here next time.
Yeah, last Monday when I was on with Ramil, we were talking about what the Mavs can do better when they were down 2-0, 3-0 at the time. I can't remember. And we were talking about, like, how do they tweak their guard rotation? And I only mention that now because I don't want to look back at this finals and say, was their guard rotation bad and they made the wrong choices of who should play? Or were Luka and Kyrie not good enough to mask that when they had the ball all the time? And it's just like, yeah, run it back with the same team, because Hardy couldn't give him enough. He couldn't guard. And in the Celtics, it's just, so if you have a weakness, you're going to struggle in Celtics. Like Hardaway Jr. didn't give him enough outside of a quarter that they already had the game. So, like, that was a very impressive quarter. I don't want to diminish that, but that was his only really awesome stretch. Josh Green was good in this game 5, but he didn't have that kind of finals. Exum was really good in game 4 as well, but I just wanted them to have one more ball handler or guard. And so now I wonder if they keep Derrick Jones, their only expiring contract are Derrick Jones and Markieff Morris. Is there like Tim Hardaway plus Omax plus Hardy plus whatever picks they have for like a reliable guard to be a third guard? That would make me really confident that because I believe in their defense, like I said, that they can be really good on both ends all the time. But if that trade was there, like, they would have done it. They would have done it in February, right? So, like, I don't know how exactly they proceed. I don't think you want to respond too much to the finals, but that is where I felt the most like deficiency in their team in this series specifically. So something like that would make sense to me.
Can I quibble real quickly with the game 5 thing? Why did Dante Exum play 8 minutes and 49 seconds?
Yeah, he was awesome in game 4. Play way more, man.
And Kid said before game 3 in the presser, or in the game before game 4, in the in-between, he said, yeah, he was really good for us, and I need to find a way to play him more. And then he played him more, and they won. And then he goes back to this again. And I'm just like, you needed guys that can dribble, shoot, and drive, man, and defend. Dante Exum can do all those things. You could say, like, he's not a great shooter. He's shot really well this year for Dallas, and it's not like you have better options. You don't.
Yeah.
So it was weird.
He should have had all of Tim's minutes to me. And I get to thinking of, like I thought this in the Pacers-Celtics series, and obviously it's easy to say this because I covered that series, but every time the Pacers made an adjustment, I said, if they are sacrificing offense, they should do it because they can't stop the Celtics. They need to score. Right. And so the Mavs didn't hit 100 in all 4 of their losses. Like, to me, I get the temptation to play Tim Hardaway because of that. But Exum gave you just as much offense in this series and is a much better defender. So that wasn't like, it's easy to say that now because the series was over. But in my head, I'm like, I would have stuck with the Aussie, I think.
Yeah. I do think Jason Kidd was a big winner from this postseason.
Huge. He did a great playoff.
I've long been a Jason Kidd skeptic / hater in terms of his coaching acumen. And he really impressed the heck out of me he outcoached Ty Lue. He outcoached Mark Daigneault. He had the edge on Chris Finch and never really let Finch find anything solid. And he did fine in the series. Like, there wasn't much that he could do. I think he fell into some of his worst habits in this series, but he was also severely outgunned. So he had a really good run.
He did.
Kyrie had this whole redemption arc before the finals, and then absolutely just got it was a disaster class every game in Boston. And that's something that he's going to have to figure out, because it's clear that he still has leftover animosity towards how things ended with the fans in particular in Boston.
Yeah, I didn't hear what was said or if this got reported anywhere, but like Mike Breen said on the broadcast, there was a play where Kyrie dove out of bounds to save it and flew over the ESPN desk. And Mike Breen said, a fan just said something awful to him right by us, right? Like, that sticks with me, even if everybody wants there to be no tension, like, it never goes away, right? When it goes like that, it just never does. And he didn't play well in Boston a single time. And Everybody said the same thing in their finals previews. You know how I know that? Because I also said this. If Kyrie's really good, the Mavs have a good chance. And he wasn't. He was not. He had a couple of good games in there, but they were both at home. He wasn't good enough at all. And we know he can be. The 2016 or 17, whatever. The Cavs championship happened. Like, I've seen it. You know, he was really good at his playoffs until the series. It just, what reality has to matter. And he did not have a good finals.
The two best players in the series, Luka Doncic and Jason Tatum, combined to shoot 3 of 16 from 3 in this game.
See, you said it. Tatum was the second best player. Should have been Finals MVP, Matt. I see.
No, he was the best. He was the best, second best player,
but
he didn't have the best series.
Fine.
That's the key there. Up next, guess what? The NBA does not stop. The music does not stop. The party rolls on. Up next, we'll preview the NBA offseason, free agency, the draft, trades, and more here on Locked On NBA. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We'll be right back on Locked On NBA. Back here on Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us here on a Tuesday, recapping the NBA Finals. But now, Tony East, we must move on because the party does not stop.
Bang!
It is technically free agency. So they made a change in the CBA, and now free agents are eligible to negotiate with their teams that they're currently on starting after the finals, the day after the finals. So at 12:01 Eastern, teams were able to contact those free agents. Now, I think the league did a good thing here by not having it be a smorgasbord at midnight and having a bunch of deals leaked immediately. It would have been ugly in the wake of the championship. But tomorrow, I will guarantee you, we're going to start hearing deals for, I don't know, Pascal Siakam and probably Donovan Mitchell and Nick Claxton and a bunch of other guys that are going to be staying with their franchises. And that's only going to kind of start. I do like this because it does mean that teams won't enter the draft unsure if they're going to keep their marquee free agents or not. They'll at least have those things locked in.
Yeah, I think that. So first of all, I hate this rule. I hate it. Let the finals breathe for like a couple days, man. Like I get the appeal of doing this before the draft in that way, like you just said, but this is the whole point. It's the game, like the game that just happened. But yeah, one day after the season ends, I had to go dig up the whole CBA verbiage to figure it out. Here we are. Like right this second, Matt and I are talking. I could get a notification that it happened right now. Thank you, everybody in the NBA, for waiting. So, yeah, what I think or expect, I guess, what makes the most sense logically is the max guys are the no doubt, like this guy is going to make so much that that's not going to be out there for a different team. Those are the guys you'll probably see in the next couple days, which is why Siakam, Mitchell, I bet Tyrese Maxey gets announced in the next couple days because they're not like the guys that everybody expects not to go anywhere, and they're going to make a ton of money, right? Like, what was the point of waiting? Just get it over with. Agent wants it out with clients coming in the draft and teams going out because they're happy they get to keep their player, and there's no way they're going to sign anywhere else because it's a buttload of money. Like, I think the guys who have options and it matters what happens in the draft or like what moves are made there, they should wait till the 30th, even if their incumbent team makes sense for them. But guys that like the draft doesn't matter to what their free agency looks like, those are the guys that I bet you'll see trickle in. Maybe you've heard some already if you're listening to this show, but yeah, late Tuesday into Wednesday. Maybe they have to wait 24 hours. How about that? 24 hours before at 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday. That's the Tony rule.
I'm trying to think like what's the good timing for this. I don't think it should be. I will say this. I don't think it should be a moving target where it's like, well, the finals end here, it starts then, and if the finals end then it starts then.
Yeah,
it should be a set. So what they should do,
like
honestly,
4 days before the draft or something.
It should be the Monday before the draft.
Yeah,
is like
Sunday.
The last day
the finals could have been
like Sunday at 12 is when and if it goes to game 7, okay, sure, right? Also, don't have the finals run up this close to the draft. This is bothersome to all those of us in the industry where I'm like, hey, we're done. Draft is next week. This draft, speaking of, I think is going to be really wild because there's just so many teams that are looking to move. There's so much, and there's no consensus number one. Sam Vecini of The Athletic reported this week that the Atlanta Hawks are still not like they don't know who they're going to take, and I think that's probably true. Because I do think that it's very much up in the air. I think it could be Sarr. I think it could be Ricochet. I think it could be Clean. I think it could be somebody else. Like I think the door is open for number one. And if the Hawks aren't settled on number one, then guess what? That means they could also trade back if they wanted to. Because if there's somebody else that they want to get, they could make that move. So this draft week, I think, is going to be pretty wild. And there's a lot of ways that this could go.
Yeah, okay. So it took me 6 websites to find this because everybody updates their frickin' sites when the series end. But Game 7 of the finals would have been Sunday. So there you go. Midnight that night would have been fine and squeezed it in, although it would have broken my rule of it being right at the finals. But that makes more sense to me than this, right? Where we're talking about it after Game 5. And I get why they did it. It was stupid that everybody just had to sit around, right? Like, can we all just get this over with if we know what we're doing? And the thing I always thought is dumb, too, is like right this second, Pascal Siakam's under contract with the Pacers. It doesn't end until June 30th. Like, why can't they talk? Like, it's stupid.
Yeah.
So at least like it's logical. I just wish there was a little more lag.
Well, okay. I also want to say this. The whole thing is dumb. And here's why the whole thing is dumb. Here's why the whole thing is dumb. Is because, well, now you can negotiate with your own free agents, but no one else. That would be tampering. Come on, guys. Like we know the deal. We know the deal. They're all talking right now.
Well, but the thing that's going to be really interesting that I'll be fascinated by the coverage of this, Matt, is not the stories aren't going to be the guys that sign. It's going to be the guys that are eligible and don't re-sign. Yeah, like Clay, like LeBron, or maybe they do, but like the guys that you expect that could drag it out. That's going to be what gets talked about. Why isn't Clay signed with the Warriors? You know, it's like I think that's going to be what becomes a new thing.
Yeah, I am kind of expecting LeBron probably to get it done tomorrow, right? Like that makes the most sense for Clutch to leak out. LeBron James has agreed to a 2-year deal. Like they're probably going to do it all together.
No. The Lakers have to do a different thing first before they announce the other big thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Why don't they do the package deal? Like JJ they'll just do the podcast. They'll do the podcast in front of an audience, which will be the media.
Right in crypto, baby. There we go.
And they can just do the episode right there and talk it through and talk about JJ's decision and all this, and then we can get it sorted out. It is going to be, I think, a wild trade and free agency and draft season. I just think that there's a lot of pieces that are on the move. Klay Thompson, Paul George, Jimmy Butler is a big name that I'm keeping a pretty close eye on. Malik Monk, I think, is going to go somewhere else based off of. I feel very confident in that because the Kings can only offer him $71 million, and he's going to get offers for way more than that from other teams. I think Charlotte's going to be a big mover. I think Atlanta's probably going to do something with their guys. So it's going to be a pretty active NBA summer. It's not going to be a blockbuster, I don't think. I just think it's going to be a lot of moves, and that makes for interesting content.
Crappy draft. Here come the aprons, 1 year away from new tax rules. Everything is aligning for this to be an interesting summer of teams trying to sort stuff out. But at the same time, a lot of the natural trade partners to sort out with can't do stuff because of the aprons. So it's going to, that's why I think you're right. There's going to be a lot of that's weird, but I guess, it's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff.
But there's also this, which is you don't look at the Boston Celtics, and despite them being the best team from start to finish, and being one of the best teams in SRS, simple rating system of point differential versus opponent strength of schedule of all time, you don't look at them and go, they're unbeatable. The window's open. You can win the tie. We've seen teams make the finals from various positions. That at least tells us that these other teams are not unbeatable. It's not like we have it's not LeBron in the East and the Warriors in the West. The door's a little bit open. And so I'll be curious to see how teams approach that.
So I suppose by default this makes them beatable, but I would consider them unbeatable by everyone who doesn't have Nikola Jokic currently on their team.
Maybe.
But that team didn't make the finals, so it doesn't matter that I say that.
Yeah, look, I will say this. I think the Celtics were awesome this year. The other thing I just try and keep in mind is it's hard to keep that chemistry the same.
And they were healthy.
Yeah, and they were healthy. Well,
KP got hurt, but
KP got hurt. That was the thing. I do want to make one more note on the Celtics. They did do this by missing their starting center for almost the entire playoffs.
That's true. I shouldn't say that. none of our ball handlers got hurt.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. None of their 17 ball handlers suffered injuries.
Endless supply of all-stars.
All right. That's got to do it for Locked On NBA. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. My thanks to Tony for filling in tonight. John Corrales, Jake Madison should be with you tomorrow, recapping the finals from John's perspective as well. We'll have you covered all throughout the week for draft, free agency, and more. Keep it right here on Locked On NBA.